We're all set? Okay. All right, I'd like to call the April Public Safety Committee meeting to order. First order of business, approval of the minutes. Well, not for last month, actually for February. Motion to approve February's minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, privilege of the floor. Is there anybody here for privilege of the floor? Okay, one more time. Privilege of the floor, anybody? Okay, not seeing anybody. We'll move on to the first proposed resolution. Authorize execution of New York State Office of Homeland Security funding grant operation Stone Garden for fiscal year 2023. And guys, before you begin, identification just for the thousands of people at home. Well, or maybe a dozen or two.
Sheriff Jim Quattrone.
Riley Enlow, Fiscal Supervisor.
Thanks, guys.
So the first resolution we have in front of you is a grant that has no local funds. It's budget neutral. It was covered in our it was included in our 2024 budget. The total is $92,125. This covers personnel costs such as overtime, fringe costs, and some equipment costs. I have those breakdowns if you would like. The contract period is September 1st, 2023 to August 31st, 2026.
That's about
Questions?
it.
That's about it.
Okay.
And this is a renewal of an existing grant that,
Jim, we've had this for as long as I can remember.
Yes.
Is it just, do you have to apply to have it reinstated every 2 or 3 years, or is it just, does it just come from the state?
It's actually federal funding.
Federal, okay.
And it's a regional grant.
Oh, yeah, Homeland Security.
Yep.
Okay.
Is this 92 just for this year? Is it one segment? I see it's like 3 years.
The 92,000 is for that whole period of time. Yes. So we'll budget for it in 2025 and 2026. Also, when those budgets
Portions out of it?
So
Yes.
Okay.
about a third this year, or not quite?
I guess it depends really on how much we spend.
Okay.
A lot of that funding actually goes to help offset overtime shifts that pertain specifically to border patrol shifts. So, I mean, it really kind of depends, and we pay other local police agencies as well who also have officers that join ours in those overtime shifts. So it really just kind of depends on how many shifts, how many officers end up working those shifts, because that's what a lot of the money goes toward, so. Hope that helps.
Jen, does it go to the state police too?
It does, but not a portion of the 92 or whatever that you see in front of you. There is a portion that does go to the state troopers though as well.
Okay. Okay, committee, any other questions on this proposed resolution?
Nope.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, next, proposed resolution, authorized lease agreement between Chautauqua County and Western New York Public Broadcasting Association for tower space.
This lease agreement is a replacement of a reciprocal lease that we had with Western New York Public Broadcasting Association, where we leased, I believe, some space off of their tower.
Good afternoon, Todd Thomas from the Law Department. Riley was right on it, but I was the one that did this contract, so I'm just following up. The Western New York used to trade tower space on our tower for their tower on Kelly Hill, which
Hill.
is actually used by the highway superintendents and not by the county. So we've updated this now that there's a new Oak Hill Tower. They're going to be renting space from the county directly and the Highway Superintendents Association will be making their own arrangements for their equipment. Because there was ongoing controversy related to tearing down our Oak Hill Tower and putting the new one up when they had to move their equipment, it was decided that we let them have a break on rent for the first bit instead of having a dispute over whether or not we owed them money for having to relocate. And then they will begin paying rent after the first 5-year period.
That's the Western New York Public Broadcasting.
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
Okay, folks, any other questions on this one? Okay. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Carried. Thanks, Todd,
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
for pinch hitting.
I may not have been as nice.
Probably not, Jim, but, okay. All right, number 3, proposed resolution amend 2024 budget for the Tyler Civil Serve License Project within the Chautauqua County American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, spending plan. Riley,
So-
is this you again?
I'm sorry?
Is this you again?
Yes, this
And
is
this
me
one,
again.
okay.
Yes. So this project actually isn't a new project. It was a project that we closed, thinking that we had paid all of the costs to Tyler due to invoicing issues. So Tyler invoiced us the last portion of their contract just recently, and we had already closed the ARPA project. So basically, we're asking for the ARPA project to be reopened, and the balance that we had left in the ARPA fund to be reallocated back to this project, so we can close out this project completely.
And it's only for $728?
That is correct. The total project cost was $15,698, and we were only invoiced originally for $14,970. So that was leaving the balance of the $728.
Okay. Committee questions on this one?
Can I have just a little context? What is Tyler Civil Serve License Project?
Yeah, Tyler Civil Serve is our software company for the sheriff's office is through Tyler, but Tyler Civil Serve is specifically for our civil division, which is right here on the 3rd floor. And it's specific, and I can't really tell you all the things it does because civil is a unique creature in itself, but it tracks all the transactions that the civil office has to do, keeps a record of that. We had one license. The problem is we have 3 people that were trying to use that one license, so there was a lot of downtime, not being able to have multiple users at the same time.
I was just curious.
Yep,
what it-
that's
Tyler is the vendor that has the county's financial software. So the New World program that everybody else uses for all of the general financial transactions, this is an off branch of their financial software specific to
New York State civil law.
Yes, the civil law portion. So
Okay, thank you.
So this is for the pistol permit office?
No,
Or
for our civil division,
On the 3rd floor?
right next to the pistol permits office.
Oh, okay,
So-
all right, gotcha, all right. Okay, committee questions on this? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Jim and Riley, next we have a discussion. Jim, you and I had a conversation. The reason this topic has come up is because, well, a guy that we both know from Cherry Creek ran into a situation where he found somebody that was trying to get into a house in Cherry Creek. When he stopped to talk to the individual said that they intended to live in the house. But this person knew that the owners of the house were in Florida. Discussion ensued. Ultimately, this individual left, but it sounded like it was a squatting situation. We had a discussion and well, what have you come up with since
Sure.
then, Jim, or what are your thoughts on this?
Sure, again, squatting, we're starting to see that across the nation. You know, specifically in states that have enhanced tenants' rights and made eviction processes for landlords, you know, quite honestly, more difficult. And, but the squatting is what we've been seeing more of, people who will enter a house, maybe a snowbird's house, that they're away on vacation for the summer, and they just will help themselves to the house, go in there and say that they have a right to be there. So then when the proper owners come home, many times they're refusing to leave the residence and saying that we had to get an eviction process. We haven't really encountered that in Chautauqua County right now, and we do believe that in talking with other legal counsel from the state, that if there's no agreement, and sometimes where we do in the county get problems is somebody will legitimately lease a property and then invite somebody else to live there, and then the original leasee leaves and leaves the person that we've had some of those.
Or
Where-
subleases?
Sublease, but
okay,
without
whatever.
permission from the owner.
Okay.
So, and that's where an eviction process likely would have to take place. If somebody just helps themselves to the residence, this case that you're mentioning in Cherry Creek, we believe that would be at least a criminal trespass charge,
Okay.
or possibly, likely a burglary charge. And we would move forward with criminal charges.
What's the average eviction time from the time you serve from that eviction before they're out? Is that a lengthy process?
It is a lengthy process, yeah,
Still
especially, yes, there's not a real quick process. I can't tell you the exact timing. And there's so many different avenues that it can go, and conditions. That's why we have the civil department. You know, they kind of specialize in that area. It's until you've actually worked that area, you don't realize how complicated it is. And
Well, it's on the news all the time,
Yeah.
lately. It seems, in fact, it's spiking in the country, but I'm glad to hear what you said, it hasn't happened in Chautauqua
Yeah.
County yet.
and
Well, it has to a certain extent.
people are trying.
Yeah, I had an instance in the city of Dunkirk last year too. So I don't think it's prevalent, Jim, but I think it's something we should be aware of, and at least maybe have some sort of policy to deal with this situation, perhaps in conjunction with the law department
And I think
Right.
we would have to have the district attorney's office involved
as well.
in developing that
Exactly.
policy.
Do squatters have rights? Is there such a thing as squatters' rights? I mean, is this like the
There never used to be,
1800s or?
but there are now.
There has been some legislation. I'm not real familiar with New York legislation, but articles I've read is that there are rights for that.
I mean, I'm
But-
not defending.
No,
that,
no, but
I'm
def-
just
def-
asking,
define-
do we have any
defining-
legal leg to stand on?
Nelson.
And I think that's part of it, is defining what a squatter is. If they're like subleasing, as you mentioned, you know, they do end up with some rights there.
How's that possible, though?
I can't answer that. I'm not saying that I agree with it. I just, you know, that's,
It's a sign of the times.
you know, and there are, you know, across the nation, there are states that are definitely giving more rights to squatters. I don't want to say legitimate squatters, but those who are, you know, going to a house with no expectation, shouldn't have any expectation. There's been no lease agreements, no agreements, they're just helping themselves to the residents. You know, by New York state law, we would say that's a criminal trespass, and depending on how they've got in and what they've done, potentially a burglary.
Well, and I think, Jim, there's some constraints as far as what we can do if somebody occupies a house for over 30 days too. I'm not sure, maybe Todd can check into it at some point, but I think there's some restrictions that have been posed by New York State on evictions or whatever. If
So
somebody's
that
been
would,
there for
again,
over
with
30 days.
somebody, you know, as I mentioned earlier, somebody legitimately is leasing or renting, invites somebody else to stay there, and then they leave.
Okay,
And then they've had that, in some, different courts will hold different rulings. I don't know that there's anything codified that says 30 days. You know,
Okay.
so different courts may make different determinations on that. But I don't believe that the 30-day or any type of period would apply to somebody who's
That-
just
who's
walked into, that broke
unauthorized.
into a house.
unauthorized,
Correct.
okay.
But in Cherry Creek, those people were intending on living there? In Squaw?
Yeah, the individual was, the former elected official didn't know this person, but did know the owners of the house, and he persuaded him to leave.
It-
So,
I spoke with a senior citizens group last week or 2 weeks ago, and this was a concern of theirs.
really?
That
Okay.
because there's been a lot in the media on it. Again, my suggestion to anybody that does go south or goes out of the county for an extended period of time, to have neighbors watching their house. You know, it's unfortunate we're in the times that we have to do that, but it's wise to do it. Have neighbors watching it, and also contact the sheriff's office or the local police agency wherever you live to have them do a property check. But make sure you let the law enforcement know if anybody's allowed to be there or not. You know,
So
sometimes,
if they're not allowed to be there, say they went to Florida, 3 days later, the neighbor calls, hey, you got someone in your house. They call the sheriff. What's to say that, hey, I'm a squatter and I'm staying here?
if,
I'm just curious.
again, if we have information from the owners, we would contact the owners and find out that if anybody has the right to be there, and then we would move forward with an arrest of, again, depending on what the circumstances are.
Jim, we could also contact the county tax department to see who the owner of record is too.
Yeah, and we can do that actually from our cars too, So,
Yeah, exactly.
so.
Well, again, I don't think this is a major problem here in Chautauqua County, but it seemed to be occurring more and more. So it's something that I think we should at least be aware of. And I don't know how the rest of the committee feels, but I feel these folks that squat should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, whether it be trespassing or burglary or whatever, again, within the confines or constraints of New York State law,
Correct.
okay?
I know as a councilman, I got not lots, but I got a few calls from people who said that the condemned house on their street, there was a light on in there, they thought someone was in there, and I said, that's not a matter for the city council, that's a matter for them, call the police department and let them know.
And that was Marty Proctor, moving into that.
It might have
house, I
been.
think.
I do believe you'll see
He
that more.
wanted to live in
with-
Jamestown.
Yeah. But-
Definitely see it more with the condemned homes where there's nobody there.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, many times the condemned homes, they're really not having many people look after them. So,
I mean, they can become crack houses and stuff too.
a lot of criminal activity happens, and unfortunately, a lot of those homes that are condemned without power, especially in the cold months, the danger there is, heating sources and people trying to stay warm. That's, perhaps why we're seeing some of the condemned homes burning, is not necessarily intentional, but accidental because of carelessness.
Yeah.
Anything else, committee? Okay, Jim, one last thing. I see that the undersheriff's name was on most of these resolutions here for today. Would you please convey to him that the Public Safety Commission or Committee asked about him and offered our well wishes to him?
Absolutely will do.
Okay.
He's doing good. As you can see, he's still working hard. So
His name is on a lot of paperwork.
this is just a fraction.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thanks, committee. Appreciate it.